years, but a number of years.
Welcome to Late Night Legends, where we've parked the time capsule in 1988. The year the Russians began to withdraw from Afghanistan, Pan Am Flight 103 was blown up over Lockerbie, Scotland by Libyan terrorists. Nick Crino won in a landslide in New South Wales, John Cain narrowly in Victoria. Musically, our turntables were spinning with Jason Donovan, John Farnham and New Sensation by In Excess. Robert Palmer was simply irresistible globally. The games of the 24th Olympiad were held in Seoul, South Korea. Soviet Union topped the medal count, but the big story was Canadian sprinter Ben Johnson's disqualification and disgrace. Australia cheered long and hard for Duncan Armstrong, Debbie Flintoff-King and the wonderful women's hockey team. In tennis, it was all about Steffi, who iced her Grand Slam with gold in Seoul. Swedes won all of the men's titles, but not the Davis Cup. In cricket, Alan Border's side started the year with a win over Sri Lanka, followed by a draw with England in the Bicentenary Test. We also celebrated our bicentenary with a special invitational soccer tournament involving 3 other nations. Australia's first game resulted in a respectable 0-1 against Brazil, before the Socceroos, coached by Frank Arok and led by Charlie Yankos, met their second opponent, Saudi Arabia, in Sydney. It was the first time the two countries had played one another. In goal for Australia was Jeff Olver. Jeff, what did you know about the Saudi Arabians going in?
Not a lot. Obviously, we knew they're throwing a lot of money. Obviously, they're a very rich oil country, and we knew they're throwing a lot of money into their game and bringing a lot of the Brazilians across initially to coach them. We didn't know what to know. We ended up playing at the Parramatta Stadium that day, and the ground was fairly ordinary. Parramatta, as you know, it's either very good or very bad, and unfortunately when we played there it was pretty poor, but we ended up getting a good result. I remember Frank Farina, who obviously became the national coach for a little while there for about 7 years. He ended up scoring one of the goals and we got a good result. So then obviously put us in a position then hopefully to get a good result against the Argies and then hopefully get into the final. Which
against the Saudis, did you have much work to do in goal?
Not a lot of work, to be honest. I mean, it's a game, I think, bit of a punt here, but obviously they're probably used to sort of sandy conditions, the Saudis, but they weren't used to sandy conditions and a very bumpy pitch, and that's what we had at Parramatta Stadium. But we dominated that game and we got a very, very good result, which obviously set us up for the rest of the tournament.
And just reflecting back on the earlier game, once again against Brazil, prior to the game with the Saudis, to come out and only be 1-0 against Brazil, a pretty good effort, eh?
As I say, we didn't know what to expect. Obviously, people have got reputations, but I mean, Australia's a country known for reputations don't mean anything. I mean, in all sports that we play, we go out and obviously try and do our best. And under Frank, he made us believe that we could get a result. Unfortunately, we didn't, but we were very competitive, and the rest of the tournament we were also competitive, and we ended up obviously making the final after a couple of great results. Okay,
well, let's check out the second game. Let's join our commentators at Parramatta Stadium for the Bicentennial Gold Cup match between Australia and Saudi Arabia.
Hello and welcome everyone to Game 3 of the Bicentennial Gold Cup here at Parramatta Stadium in Sydney. Well, today's game is absolutely vital to Australia as we tackle the skillful Saudi Arabians who put on such a marvellous display against Argentina during that 2-2 draw on Wednesday night.
Majid is up there, Majid Abdullah. Suede. Arok coming in, and did he get the touch?
And as the applause rises for the national anthems here, on Thursday night we also saw a great display by Australia against the might of Brazil. Although we lost 1-0, the Socceroos had the balance of play and scoring chances and were unlucky not to get a draw.
Crino didn't get the best header first time. Nelsinho, Romario, and the goal is given. Australia caught, feeling that there should have been an offside then. Jennings with a throw. Oh, Cosmino was poised. Wade certainly is. Good save by Tafaro. Wade again.
Well,
Johnny Warren, can the Socceroos pick themselves up and bounce back?
Well, I think it's very unfair for the host nation to organise that the players don't have enough rest. They only got 1 day's break, whereas the Saudis have had 2. It's a question how mentally and physically they've recovered from that brilliant effort against Brazil the other evening. Saudi Arabia, I feel, are going to improve as the tournament goes on. They're an excellent football nation. They showed glimpses of it against Argentina, and I feel the Socceroos have to play at a similar level as they did against Brazil if they're to get a result today.
OK, John, thank you very much. We'll talk to you later. So an absolutely vital game for Australia against Saudi Arabia as we join your commentator, Martin Tyler.
Good afternoon, everyone. It's a bright, blustery afternoon here in the western suburbs of Sydney. Let's straight away check on the Australian side. The Saudi Arabians poising for their picture, but Australia have Jeff Olver in goal, a back line of Wally, Savor, Robbie Dunn, Charlie Yankos the captain, and Graham Jennings. Alan Davidson holds an important anchoring job in midfield with the tireless Paul Wade in there and the very talented Oscar Crino, who played so well against Brazil. So too did Frank Farina, but it's in attack where Australia are forced into their one change. You're looking at Scott Ollerenshaw, who comes in place of the injured Cosmina, and Graham Arnold will therefore take on a more central role. Ollerenshaw from Frank Arok's National League club, Sydney St George. Saudi Arabia, not surprisingly, keep the side which drew with Argentina. Deayea in goal, Saad break, Ezzaki, Jamil and Abdullah the back 4. 3 players in midfield, Mutlaq, Mosebi and Hirefi. Suwaid and Mohissein will drop deep when necessary. But the main striker is Majid Abdullah, the captain, who showed his quality with that excellent headed goal against Argentina. Referee is Bill Monteverde, who comes from Brisbane. Well, there's a great sense of expectation here in the Parramatta Stadium, but I do have to report that the pitch is in appalling condition for a match of this stature. It's dry, it's without grass. Both sides are very disappointed with it. And I must say, as a visitor to this country, knowing how long they've had to prepare for this Bicentennial Gold Cup, I'm really amazed that an international soccer match of this standing is being put on a field like this. I'm sure we'll get bags of effort from the players, but really, you can't paint a picture, Johnny Warren, if you don't have the canvas.
Martin, I'm embarrassed as an Australian, as a soccer person, that the pitch is an absolute disgrace. These games going throughout the world, up to 61 countries taking it, and for Australia to be on show to the world on a field like that, which couldn't be cut or rolled, as Frank Arok asked, to make it at least level, is an absolute embarrassment to us.
Now, I understand that when the request for the grass to be cut, they were told there was no ground staff available for it. Anyway, with that reported and put now to the back of our minds, I'm sure it's going to be a splendid afternoon of soccer in the sunshine, and a souvenir for the Australian coach Frank Arok. Eddie Thompson, his assistant there. We just got a glimpse on the right. I hardly need to remind you that Australia are in the gold and green. And we've certainly got a difference of emphasis here from the match in Melbourne on Thursday, when Australia were very much the underdogs. I think, given proper preparation, it's a match Australia would expect to win. But they have had less than 48 hours rest since their last encounter on a sapping surface in Melbourne. Away we go. Australia attacking the goal to the left in the first half. And here's Alan Davidson. Graham Jennings at left back. Robbie Dunn wearing number 5. Charlie Yankos, the sweeper. So everyone getting an early feel of the ball, and that's not a bad policy. Yankos to Jennings. The first meeting at international level between these two countries. Saad break to take the throw. Mutlaq. Australia will want to try and force the pace, but Saudi Arabia are a team built to counter-attack. Ollerenshaw thought he got the game's first corner, but it was a feeling not shared by the referee, who has awarded a goal kick. Abdullah, because of the dryness and hardness, presumably, of the ground, wearing the tracksuit bottoms, although the goal mouths aren't too bad. Dunn, sensibly played. Wade, Davidson, who often plays at right back, but he's quite capable of doing the job in midfield. Savor. It's Australia's throw. Gary Parr, one of the two linesmen, the other Alex Bozinoski. Savor's throw. And Farina was poised, and that's not a bad effort taken off balance by Crino. Now, Crino was very disappointed that Australia didn't get anything from the match against Brazil. He played so well and looking to make an early mark on this match. But I thought it was very encouraging that Crino felt so disappointed. I think in the past, Australia would have felt quite happy to have kept Brazil down to a one-goal margin of victory. But these players thought they could have done more, thought they could have got more from the performance. Jennings, who played very well also against Brazil, is in quickly. The one message really from the Saudi dressing room is that the team, because of the surface, are not likely to dwell on the ball quite as much as they would like. I think we'll see some longer passes from the back rather than the more controlled build-up. Through here, Ollerenshaw still till side break got it away, and Saudi Arabia then didn't deal well with a long free kick from Yankos, which was a pretty straightforward ploy, and that might offer hope to Australia. Davidson mishit it. The rise in Australian soccer really pointed out by the qualification for the Seoul Olympic final tournament. These days it's very hard to qualify with professionals being allowed in. When you think Italy will be there, and West Germany, Brazil and Argentina, traditional soccer nations. Davidson getting a good crisp call from Jeff Olver. Cap to guard against the sun. Well, there was an appeal there from Mo Hussein, but the throw has gone to Australia. Certainly most of the opening 5 minutes being played in the Saudi half. Savor. It's good work from Arnold. Crino's got into the area. The back heel was beautiful for Ollerenshaw. My word! His first goal in a senior international, brought in
to the side because of an injury to Kosmina. And in the 6th minute, Scott Ollerenshaw, after a delightful touch from Crino, it's just what Australia wanted. Terrific work by Arnold earlier in the move to whip in the cross early, and the Saudis never recovered, but that was class from Crino, and that's the goal from Ollerenshaw. Johnny Warren.
Well, dream start, Martin, for Australia. They've been the aggressor in the first 5 minutes with 3 strikes on goal. What a fabulous goal. The cross from Arnold, the touch of magic from Crino, one of our outstanding players the other night, not just for Australia, but on the park, if not the outstanding performer. And young Scott Ollerenshaw, among the goals for his club, has put Australia 1 up. A fabulous start for Australia.
It's a flick from Arnold again. Well, I talked to Scott Ollerenshaw about an hour before the kickoff just to check whether he'd scored for his country, and he said not yet. Well, he has now. Well, Saudi Arabia were a little fortunate to survive a disallowed goal that Argentina put away early in the game in Adelaide on Wednesday, and we felt then that they might crumble if they had an early disaster. We'll see what sort of backbone they've got. They like to try and play the offside, and it was only the cruel bounce of the ball then that robbed Paul Wade. That's something that Australia have been working on in the limited amount of time between games. Eddie Thompson noted the offside ploy. Frank Arok had got them working to get Wade running from deep. That's just what he did then. It beat the trap, but Wade couldn't beat the bounce. Put out by Dunn, not quite out now of Savor. Abdullah, who caught the eye with his driving runs from left back against Argentina. So Wade. Rafi well forward. And that's typical work from Wade. Yankos, and the early goal relaxing Australia. Remember, it's a 4-team format, each playing each other in a round-robin league system, and then the top 2 in the league playing in the grand final, and the 3rd and 4th playing off for 3rd place. To get into the top 2, it has to be a win here for Australia, and whatever the call, if it's against Australia, Frank Arok's likely to protest it. It's only a throw against them after all. You'd think that Saudi Arabia had been given a penalty. They appreciated it. Ollerenshaw, the scorer of the game's only goal in the 6th minute. Davidson. Well, you can see the confidence that that goal has brought. The next game that Australia plays against Argentina. Here's Arnold. Corner conceded by Saad break. Being forced to turn as the ball was played over the top of him, but he was quick enough to get back. But Australia have the corner. And the positioning in the middle will be interesting here. Crino can deliver the corners accurately. Dunn right in the 6-yard area. And it comes round the back to where Wade had made one of those well-timed breaks. Farina. Davidson. The Saudis streaming out, trying to close down the Australian players in possession, and that's why they've been forced back into their own half. Arnold. Jennings. It's good play. The international game, much more than club football, is really about keeping the ball for periods and then changing the pace when you do make progress towards the danger area. Ollerenshaw. What sort of pace has he got against Mutlaq?
Oh.
Well, I am amazed.
That is an amazing decision, Martin. That's the second time Australia had a distinct advantage there, a goal-scoring opportunity, and I just can't believe that decision.
Bill Monteverde just too quick with the whistle. Ollerenshaw had got away, got the better of Mutlaq. Well, I suppose if it ends up in the back of the net now, everyone will be happy, but there is plenty of provision in the laws of the game for an advantage to be played. I wonder whether Crino might fancy that gap on the far side. Well, Deayea's moved across to cover it now, so he's got to perhaps get it over the wall. He's curled it, but too high, and it's a goal kick. Wade. Laid off back to him by Farina. Crino. It's a nice blend about Australia in midfield. And for the most part, good movement up front. Yankos. Ollerenshaw. Farina. Jennings has got ahead of him. Here's Crino. And that very nearly came off between Crino and Wade. But beware the Saudis on the break. They'll pick their moment, and it could have been just such a moment then if they'd been able to collect their forces. Certainly, Jennings, in his anxiety to get forward, was out of position and needed covering. Abdullah. Savor. That's enterprising work from Wally Savor. And it is a corner at the end of it. That will be appreciated down there on the bench. Corner being entrusted to the left foot of Ollerenshaw. Robbie Dunn will fight for this one. And he'll have another chance because it's a corner again. Now Deayea felt that he was being fouled. Went across to the referee to try and make that point and got no sympathy. It's Wade again. They can't quite reach him with just the right ball. Farina after more enterprise from Savor. Farina. Well, it was a case of the wrong man for the job in there for the cross, really. I think Arnold might have just taken a chance and thrown himself over the top of the defender. Crino not at his strongest in the air.
I'm stunned, Martin. The Saudis aren't picking weight up beyond the far post. They're going to pay the penalty shortly if Crino can get it to him.
He's there again. If Crino can see him through the pack. Not so deep this time. Davidson challenging Jennings. The Saudis coming out and the ball running for them. They're in a position where they might be caught here. Crino. The panic button for Saudi Arabia was about to be pressed in the face of the intricate dribbling of Oscar Crino. It does amaze me as a visitor, John. We talk about all these guys being Australian, and they are to the core, although Crino was born in Argentina, came here when he was 8 or 9, and he plays like an Argentinian. Wade came here as a youngster from England, and he plays like an Englishman.
Well, Crino's the best Argentinian we've seen in this tournament so far.
Arnold's up. Savor. And Dunn couldn't turn, and the flag had stayed down. But when you think that they learnt their soccer here, and yet there's still something in the...
Well, it's in the blood, isn't it? I
Yes.
believe they even say kids born here, actually born in Australia, of particularly Middle European and South American parents, they still handle the ball that little bit better than, say, the Anglo-Saxon Australian, if you like.
Here's Wade.
It's in the blood, Martin. It's an art form, our football. It's an expression, and it's just simply in the blood. But Davidson, for me today, having a splendid game. He did the other night as well. He's experienced in the middle of the park. He's just cooling things. He's very positive when he gets the ball, and having a splendid game, as are many other players, of course, but I particularly like Davidson. And Australia playing very smartly. They're bypassing the midfield on a lot of occasions, bypassing that rough area. Good running from Farina, Ollerenshaw and Arnold in front. They're able to hit the long ball and find them.
Jennings. Here's Crino. This is Farina. Against Jamil.
Oh, no.
Well, there was a case there for obstruction. That fan certainly thought so, but
Clearly a foul. Clearly a foul.
The header from Dunn. Davidson biting in again. But Saad giving him a run for his money this time. Corner. That was intricate work right on the touchline by Saad. Slipped Davidson a couple of times. Jennings had to come across, and it ended up as a corner. Off the line by Dunn. And frustration in the end for Saudi Arabia. With Olver backpedaling. It was a desperately difficult moment for the goalkeeper, who lost it. And the header back was cleared off the line. And I think it was from Saad. Well, just when Australia were looking comfortable, there's something for the Saudi support to be encouraged by. To be fair, Johnny, it was a good corner, wasn't it? Because it rather sucked Jeff Olver into going for it, and it kept on going.
Well, that corner just beyond the far post is difficult to get for keepers. Well-rehearsed move by the Saudis, and shows the danger of them, Martin. Even though Australia on top completely, we've seen stranger things than a team to come back and equalise. Australia, really, the main problem is that they have to convert their undoubted superiority. because a one-goal lead against deadly finishers like the Saudis is insufficient.
And of course, it was on the stroke of half-time that they equalised against Argentina.
Well, they came back twice against Argentina, and we'd all feel a lot more comfortable with a two-goal leeway.
There's no doubt that Frank Arok is frustrated that possibly the chances that Australia make do lack real quality in the finishing off. They don't quite get the goals that their build-up play deserves.
Well, the Saudis have been up Australia's end 3 times and have had 3 goal-scoring opportunities.
But Australia do have the 1 goal here. It came in the 6th minute, and an excellent goal too, with Arnold and Crino involved, and Ollerenshaw the scorer. Well, I've seen Yankos shoot from this range. It's a good 35 metres. Ollerenshaw, the decoy. Here's the shot, and it's fumbled. Farina, 2-0. So they can breathe a bit more easily now. So Yankos didn't disguise his intentions. He was always prepared to blast away at goal. Deayea didn't do very well, I'm afraid. And the man on the spot was Frank Farina. 5 minutes before half-time. And it's Australia 2, Saudi Arabia 0. A sweet sight for Farina, honoured on the excellent scoreboard here. Johnny.
Well, we can breathe a little bit easier. What a splendid free kick from Charlie Yankos. It bent and curved a little bit. The keeper couldn't hold it, and Farina, as all good strikers, when keepers drop the ball, they're there to put them in. But I don't think anyone can dispute this 2-0 lead for Australia. They've been surprised me, I must say, Martin. I thought they'd be so tired mentally and physically after that effort against Brazil. But they've come out here today, taken up the initiative, put the Saudis under so much pressure that they haven't been able to breathe.
It is a tribute to their physical fitness and their mental resolve.
The mental toughness has always been a quality Frank Arok has drummed into the boys, boasts that his team has. And for those that doubt it, those doubts are really dispelled by this first half performance this afternoon.
That's a dangerous play by Ollerenshaw. Looks a little like a young John McEnroe. I hope he doesn't behave like him. Abdullah with the cross. But it just shows how our games can turn. There we have Australia getting one off the line at one end, and straight away, when it looked as though their lead was fragile, suddenly it's become more secure. Abdullah, that was an outrageous touch with the outside of the foot on a pitch like this. I just hope the authorities don't say, well, how can you complain about the pitch when we've gone out and played like this in the first half? My answer to that is it could have been even better, because these guys can play. There you are, case proved. Frank Farina, ball juggler supreme. Abdullah having problems even standing up there in a rutted part of the pitch. I'm sure Deayea, the goalkeeper, won't be pleased with that second goal. Certainly the ball did dip and swerve, but he had a good sight of it and got into a good position to hold it, or at least push it away. The one place you don't push it is out there into Farina territory. Finishing by Mutlak. Farina, who's very good with his back to the opponent. Actually was backing in a little bit then, but he does it cleverly and he's very strong. Can't be knocked off the ball easily, and if he does go to play in a European league, that's a quality that will serve him very well. Crino wanting to see it through to half-time, really. Wade. Mistake by Mutlak. Pressed by Arnold. That's been the recipe for Australia. If you've got good skills, as the Australians have, you can only show it if you win that first battle. You have to get the ball. And to a man, the players have worked really hard. Wade. Robbie Dunn in there as well. In fact, Robbie Dunn was in danger of being caught out of position, but he was saved by the half-time whistle. Listen to the applause. Scott Ollerenshaw gave Australia the lead in the 6th minute. Australia played well with that encouragement and then had an awkward spell, but Frank Farina ended some anxieties with a second goal 5 minutes before half-time. So plenty of smiles as the players in green and gold go off. That's the reason. A half-time scoreline against Saudi Arabia. Australia 2, Saudi Arabia 0. So the players back out again. Australia with 2 goals safely in the bag, and it's brought a response from Saudi Arabia in terms of changing things on the field. They have brought on a substitute. It's the big number 7, Youssef Jazza, who also came on in the opening game against Argentina. Well, it's been a pleasant afternoon's viewing in the sunshine. But 90 minutes is a long time in a football match, and there is an old saying that 2 goals is a dangerous lead. It can breed a spot of complacency. But Australia, I'm sure, have been reminded of that fact in the dressing room by Frank Arok and Eddie Thompson. And away we go. The encouraging thing for Australia in how this second half develops is, of course, Saudi Arabia do have to take 1 or 2 risks now in an endeavour to get back into the game, and that might leave some space for the Australians to exploit. Dunn with a thoughtful pass, looking for Arnold. Here's Crino. Alan Davidson in space, easy to be found by Crino. Good support play that was, but not quite matched by the pass. Incidentally, the player who's gone off for Saudi Arabia is Mohammed. So Majid Abdullah will have a little bit more physical support, really, from the big Youssef Jazza. Jennings. The sun on the far side making it difficult for our cameramen. But most of the pitch is now in shade. visibility from the camera point of view will be perfect very shortly. Ollerenshaw with Crino taking over. Well, Carlos Alberto Pereira knows that taking over Saudi Arabia is a very big job and that there will be setbacks along the way. I expect he'll be wondering just how major a setback this might be. If Australia hit the right note again in the second half, they could go on to win by 3 or 4. But he seems to be pretty relaxed about it. And 1 goal for the Saudis, and the complexion would change. Backheader by Yusuf Jazza, booted out by Yankos. And Arnold responding with more willing running. He's a terrific team player, Graham Arnold. He's been given a slightly different job in this game because of the injury to Kosmina. But you do feel, whatever the job he's given, he'll do with 100% commitment. And I know he's often turned out in midfield for his club, but he's the main central striker for his country here. Saad break with the throw. Yankos. Drops where Ollerenshaw was very quick to react. Not offside. Deayea's come, and come quickly too. Goalkeeper very sharp off his line. Dunn. Abdullah, we haven't really seen one of his buccaneering runs from left back yet. Against Argentina, he started off so deep that sometimes he didn't get out of his own half with them before he was fouled. Wade with some sleight of foot. Crino. Wade again. So Wally Savor with the throw for Australia. Farina. Crino. Plenty of players to his left, but that pass was under hit. Jawad struggling to get much distance into his clearance. Crino with another confident touch. Jamil. Australia looking as though the message is keep up the pressure and the goals will come. Certainly the chances will. Davidson, a real candidate for man of the first half. Crino, and the flag is up to the frustration of Farina. But they're certainly not sitting back, Australia, Johnny Warren.
No, I would think the message at half-time would be very clearly just let's keep up the pressure, let's force them into errors, let's play it in their back third, let's keep the high balls, which are not always a good tactic, but I think today they are. Let's try and get 3 ahead, and I think it's very important, Martin. Here's the cross from Crino again. Good cross from Crino this time. Farina and Wade. There's Wade again. He takes up such great positions beyond the far post. It was a marginal decision. We'd have to give benefit to the linesman there. But just back to the other point that goal difference could well play a role in this tournament. And Australia's been able to win by 3 or 4 today. Perhaps that's a bit optimistic. Is going to be worth another goal because the maximum points Australia can get, of course, are 4. And should they have a draw against Argentina, that goal difference could play a vital role in whether they reach the final or not.
Absolutely. We also saw, in terms of the attitude for the second half, Farina mixing it up a little bit with the Saudi back line. And although one doesn't want to see temper and temperament interfere, it's always a good sign from a coach's point of view to see that your players are committed to the cause like that. Ezzaki hoisting in a free kick. Olver. This time with the cap off in the second half. So his fans can recognise him better. Side break with the header. Davidson getting into that position really in front of the back four where he can win the ball. He didn't win it cleanly then, and this is Deayea. Saad, Hirafi, charged down well by Yankos. But he's beaten by side break, and there was a real chance if the cross had been delivered better then. Saudi Arabia had three players in the middle. They're good in the air, particularly Deayea and Abdullah. Helped on well by Farina to Crino. Well, Crino apologising for not delivering the cross, but that was a sort of area close to goal where you've got to let your skillful players have a free rein then, and if sometimes they lose the ball, well, you know, that's bound to happen. Other times, as in the first goal, they'll come up with a touch of magic. Not quite the description then of the way that was worked by Australia. Here's Hirafi. He's got through to Deayea. And Jennings had to come right across as the covering defender. And it's a corner. Australia must be on their toes here. Davidson getting the run of the ball with the help of Farina and Ollerenshaw. Still Ollerenshaw, and Mutlak filled the gap in the end for Saudi Arabia. A real chase on the break for Ollerenshaw as Australia rather bundled the ball initially away from the corner they were defending against. But it is a day, as we've been saying, for the long pass. Abdullah came right through the back of Farina. Free kick quickly taken. Crino. Wade coming round the back. His positional sense, his work off the ball, Paul Wade, is a fine example to young players. He's always prepared to make the long run when defenders are looking one way, and he'll come round the other. Arnold, Ollerenshaw. It's good build-up again from Australia. But Ollerenshaw, I think, was looking for the foul at the end of it.
Well, I think
he didn't lead the protest.
I think it was a foul. Scotty perhaps made it change the referee's mind because he did dive at the end of it, but I'm certain there was a push there.
But it was pleasing play in the build-up to it to get the ball to Ollerenshaw. Off he went. Remember, Saudi Arabia conceded a penalty against Argentina. Well, I think that's a dive, Johnny.
Slight push. Not a penalty push.
And the push then was on Abdullah. And he's very disappointed at the attempt at a quick free kick for Saudi Arabia then. Crino, he seems to be everywhere. Abdullah, here's Saad. Hirafi, pressed all the while though by Jennings. And if you work again, you'll get your reward, and that's just what Australia did. Now, that's got to be a yellow card, surely, for Ezzaki, because that was cynical. And he knew it was coming. Jennings absolutely flattened. And Australia there were like a dog with a bone. They weren't going to let go. They were pressing and pressing until they got hold of what they wanted, which was the ball. And, well, Ezzaki was so late then, he was almost out of our picture.
Well, many of us would like to see that being a red card, not particularly in this game, but that type of incident that happens all over the world. Just the cynical professional foul, the advantage taken away from the team that's created the chance.
Well, Yankos trying to get it to the same sort of position from which his blast created the second goal. I would think a metre or two further away. Hence a variety in terms of playing it for Wade. The header from Jamil. Wade will jump again and knock it down for Arnold. Well, a goal for him would be an appropriate reward for his efforts, and a part in the build-up to one for Wade too. Wade, you felt, was always going to win that header, but Arnold's shot was always skewing wide.
You could close your eyes, Martin, and find Paul Wade beyond the far post with the Australian team. He's always there. The amount of running he does off the ball is quite incredible.
I'm very pleased from a personal point of view, Johnny, to see him running so well, because he very kindly came to the rescue of this commentator last night and did a spot of babysitting for us. I'm not sure whether that's the best sort of pre-match preparation.
Well, some of our players will do anything to influence commentators.
Well, this commentator, as I say, was very impressed. I don't know whether Paul Wade was very impressed with the behaviour of 8-month-old Adam Tyler.
Interesting switch, Martin. I don't know the reasoning behind it, but it's working. Is Davidson playing on the other side of mid? Davidson and Wade swapping sides in the midfield. It's certainly working to effect.
So Wade on the chase, beaten to it by Olver. Well, Jeff Olver doesn't need to be told by the crowd that that wasn't a very good kick. Wade up well again. Davidson, they felt, particularly Youssef Jazza, that Davidson used an arm then, but the referee didn't think so. It's a good match, competitive, from the Australian point of view, going well, but their domination not so complete that the contest is totally over. Jennings. Ollerenshaw. Picked off by Dunn. Here's Farina, Arnold and Ollerenshaw in the middle. Farina wanting to paddle his own canoe rather than. Ezzaki. Majid Abdullah. This is interesting from the Saudi viewpoint. Jazza. Only as far as Musebi. Jamil. It was just a smell then, Johnny Warren, a minute or two ago, of how the Saudis do move forward with some style when they can.
Yes, they're getting more room in the middle of the park. There are signs that Australia's starting to make elementary errors in their passing, which is a sign of tiredness. I wouldn't be surprised if a substitution was on Frank Arok's mind at the moment to freshen the team up a little bit.
It's not surprising. They've had too short a break between games. It's unfair to ask our guys to do that. They're only part-time players playing against professionals. I think it's to be expected that we're going to see the tiredness effect come into operation shortly.
Yes, remember, Saudi Arabia have been here for more than 3 weeks preparing for this competition. Imported opposition like New Zealand and Hong Kong paid for all their expenses so that they themselves, Saudi Arabia, were ready for the challenge of the Bicentennial Gold Cup. Australia have had 3 days together this week before the first game against Brazil. It's hardly a comparison. But those 3 days have refostered the spirit, which is like at club level. Not easy to get in international football, but Frank Arok and Eddie Thompson have managed to do it. They're a very tight-knit group of young soccer players. Arnold, and pretty tight-knit when it comes to negotiating their contracts as well. So the next substitution is going to be the second for Saudi Arabia. Once again, it's going to be Omar. So they've used, or will have used, exactly the same 13 players who took part in their opening match against Argentina. Davidson. I think but for illness and some injury, Alan Davidson would have had a longer career in England with Nottingham Forest. He didn't lack the raw materials. Dunn. Wade having problems with the bounce. And a break is on here for Saudi Arabia. Wade. Musabi's cross, but running with the ball, as Wade was trying to do on this pitch, is now impossible. Musabi. Mutlak. Mutlak again. So on will come Omar. Off will come Musabi. And there's just over 25 minutes remaining. Australia 2, Saudi Arabia 0. The scorers in the first half: Scott Ollerenshaw, his first goal for his country, and Frank Farina making it 2-0 5 minutes before half-time. This is Omar. I hardly need to tell you that that is Paul Wade. Farina, it was a great idea. Arnold. Farina still running. The flick didn't quite find him. Remember that the other two teams in the group, Argentina and Brazil, play tomorrow in Melbourne. Jamil. Well, the longer passing isn't really their natural game. And that was too strong from Jamil in the direction of Abdullah. Farina, the screener. That's his special skill. Forward goes Dunn. The two spiky blonde-haired players, Dunn and Wade, both waiting on the far side. Deayea with a safe catch. An opportunity there for Australia from a throw that was a little sloppy by Deayea. Black. Use of Jazza. Omar, the two substitutes combining. Mutlaq. And safely backed by Savor. So we're approaching the 3-quarter mark of the game. And no disasters have befallen Australia since the restart. But I'm sure the crowd here would love them to ice the cake with a third goal. Farina. Arnold and Ollerenshaw are in the middle. Davidson. Crino trying the little give and go there, and in fact it's squeezed through by Arnold in the end for Wade. Well played. Four waiting for the cross. Oh, and Farina wanted to bring it down, and he might have gone direct for goal. And a real opening has gone a-begging. And Saudi Arabia very relieved that it wasn't 3-0 then. Poor Wade. Marvellously done to slip the challenge, deliver the cross. Farina could have headed for goal, but by taking the extra touch, really, in that moment, the chance was lost. And we were saying on Thursday, Johnny Warren, that Farina's improved so much in the air too. But maybe the third goal will come now. Ollerenshaw. No. Well, it's keeping us on the edge of our seats.
Tom Farina, Martin, he's always been star quality, fast, exciting, but he's a player who's worked at his game. He's improved his heading, he's improved his screening, his finishing. He's a good example to all the youngsters that he did have basic qualities, but he's worked so hard at them to become the player he is today. And no doubt is going to get better.
In that sense, very like Kevin Keegan. In fact, they play a similar game, really. Arnold. Farina is free. Arnold has found him. Hardly needs a comment from me.
Our words about him must have gone to his head, I think, Martin. This was the chance to put it away. This is the type of thing Frankie used to do when he was younger. Instead of placing it, he's had a blast. And the placement was on there.
Well, in the last couple of minutes alone, Australia could have doubled the score. And your point about goal difference is a very valid one.
Well, they deserve at least a 3-goal lead, but again, it's going to be like against Brazil. The bottom line is the final score, and 2-0 really isn't enough. Robbie Slater to freshen up the attack. Interesting to see who Frank takes off. But I think a change is a good idea at this stage of the game.
Davidson was one of the players who came off against Brazil, but I wouldn't think he'd be a candidate here. It looks as though it's going to be Arnold. Slater came on as a substitute for his first taste of international football against Brazil. He had a short dash then, a little bit longer this time, but I think it's only because Graham Arnold has worked himself into the ground. And there's no Poor reflection on Arnold for coming off, although he'll be disappointed. No one likes to come off, especially in an international. But Robbie Slater, who's been playing well in the National League, bursting to make an impact for his country. Well, those who have made the journey out into the western suburbs will certainly have enjoyed the spectacle put on by Australia in particular, and Saudi Arabia, who have pushed them and not caved in and kept the match bubbling along. And they will still have some hope that they can haul themselves back into it and make Australia really regret those chances they've got away over the last few minutes. Jennings seeing the funny side of it. A header from Omar. No time for Dunn to take any risks. Farina, misjudgment by Saad, break. Helped out behind him by the covering Ezzaki. It's over Slater. Wade trying to steal in. Omar. And she was caught late. Omar did particularly well to turn away from Slater. Slater just chasing to get involved and following through. Omar had come through the difficulties, really. We're coming to the final 15 minutes. Abdullah with the header. Omar. Rafi. And again, but Crino was there to pinch the ball from him, and Slater is away. The ball just didn't run for Slater. He looked clear, but beaten as much by the surface as anything else. I say he looked clear, he was clear, but just couldn't carry on. Wade. Slater again for Crino. Oh, well, there were three bearing in on Deayea then. And he really was a saviour. And one of those three was Wally Savor, the last man you'd really expect to find in there. It's almost as if Savor's getting a bit frustrated about the chances that are going a begging, and that he wants to sneak in himself. And he very nearly did. Omar. Saudi Arabia haven't really been able to get in enough telling crosses to use the power in the air of Majid Abdullah. Just the one scare for Olver at 1-0. And Dunn got it off the line.
Wade. Threading it for Farina. Is it going to be through this time? No. But this time, we must pay credit to the goalkeeper, Deayea. There wasn't much wrong with Farina's work then. And it was really well created, the chance, with Wade involved, and as Deayea started to come off his line, he was able to haul it in from Farina's little stab at goal. Slater is a strong runner if he can actually find the right channel, which wouldn't be across the pitch. Crino. It's not easy, Johnny Warren, for Robbie Slater. I get the feeling he's not really one of Frank Arok's favourites, and yet Slater's performance this season has forced him into the side, and here he is yet given the chance again to make a quick impact.
It was Frank's club, St George. That's where Robbie made his mark as a very young player, along with Des Martin, one of a really outstanding imported player. He learnt so much from Saints and from Martin. But then he switched clubs, and the rumour has always been that it was conflict between him and Frank. But his form has been good this year. He's got his opportunity, but it never is easy to come on. Some players it suits, others it doesn't.
And the only real judgment on Slater will be when he's given the chance to start again. Oh, Davidson even looked at the referee to see. I think he thought it might be a free kick. Wade. Well, we haven't had the goals so far in the second half, but we've certainly had the opportunities. I think Ollerenshaw is tiring, and he's put plenty into it. Ollerenshaw has actually had his socks down right from the start. I wonder whether he'll do that against Argentina. Don't pull out of too many tackles. Of course, Cosmina will come back in the reckoning then. He was very nearly fit for this one. And that's that quick ball out again. Well won by Jamil. Very solid header. Well, Ollerenshaw proving me wrong. He's still got energy left in those unprotected legs. Farina. That's got to be a foul. Frustration for Frank, because Jamil had the overdrive. Farina can run past a lot of defenders, but not this one. Bit of arm linking along the way. I think it would be a shame if Australia don't mark their supremacy with a third goal, but it would be another reminder that it's in the department of taking chances that they are still a little bit short. And come the Olympics, come indeed Argentina in the next game, where you might get one or two chances, Johnny, you can't be so wasteful.
Well, I think it is the difference between part-time players and professionals. Professionals, they get the opportunity, they put them away. It is the hardest job in football, isn't it, to score goals? And if there is a criticism of our game, it is that we don't convert those chances. We've had quite a few today, and still only 2 on the scoreboard. But every other aspect of the Australians' game has been first class. On a very poor footballing pitch, they've been able to play, create chances, and keep themselves in the tournament, and bounce back from that game the other night, which was a gross disappointment to the boys to have lost to Brazil.
Here's Farina. Oh, yes! A thumping finish. No more than Australia deserve. And this time, there was no wasting it. And Slater played a part. He'll feel good about that, but not as good as Frank Farina, who almost burst the net.
And that's a more realistic scoreline given what we've seen.
Yes, they must have heard us talking. Now the job is to go on with it. There's still time to get another one. Goal difference could well be vital, and I think Australia really deserve to lead by more than 4. And there's Frank coming off.
Coming off into the arms, one Frank to another.
Star quality. It's good that the Australian public are starting to see this guy. He's been an outstanding player since he burst on the scene with Canberra City and the young Socceroos. Hopefully, or we are going to lose him, hopefully not for the national team. He'll always be available for it.
In place of Farina, we've got Vlado Bozinoski. Another like Robbie Slater, who got a brief chance against Brazil in very different circumstances then.
Interesting, Frank probably happy with 3. There he is, Frank Farina. Star, one of the many stars of Australian soccer, many would say the brightest, but a great credit to our game.
Yes, 2 goals for Frank Farina, 3 for Frank Arok. And still some 7 minutes left. And it would have been disappointing, I think, for everybody watching had the half rather drifted away with those chances, the more recent memory, rather than the first half goals. Now we've really got something to get our teeth into
and
again.
2-0. Martin, they say there's the worst score to lead by is 2-0. The opposition pinch 1, it's 2-1, suddenly the whole game changes. There's always that possibility with Saudi Arabia when Australia's only leading by 2 goals.
And the blast away technique of Farina, which made him miss, say, 10 minutes earlier, gave us something very spectacular. Well, you know you've done your job when the smiles are on one side of the bench and the photographers are on the other. Of course, sometimes it can work in reverse when they're trying to get you out of the job. And they want the picture. Poor Bobby Robson had to suffer that. They wanted the definitive gloom picture. But today, it's celebration. It's great for the tournament. And to do it without harping back on it, to play like this on this pitch is truly wonderful.
I'll ask you, Martin, before you ask me, your man of the match. It would be a hard one for Australia today.
Well, if I said Paul Wade, you think it was because he was my babysitter last night. But really, it's very hard because everybody has done their job superbly.
The confidence of Ollerenshaw, that's he's playing his club football form at international level. The first time he's done it for the Socceroos. So many performers. Crino, you can go through the whole team, really, can't you? Savor, in an attacking sense today, yes. He's always been a great marker at the back, who's contributed a lot to the attacks.
Yusuf Jazza with the header. I'd also say at key moments early on, Charlie Yankos. You remember the block from Majid Abdullah. But I'd give a man of the match award to Frank Arok and Eddie Thompson because they had to lift the players first of all. I think they probably had to lift themselves. And they prepared them perfectly. But an early goal certainly helps, doesn't it?
Especially in the 5th, 6th minute.
Yeah.
Davidson.
Oh, yes. Well, as we say, we could go through them. It's
Jennings again, who never plays a bad game for Australia, but had a superb second half against Brazil the other evening. Clean tackling. Farina, of course.
Majid Abdullah. He's been on the periphery of things because of the way the game has been balanced. But here's Suede. Majid getting in there now. Hirefi. Finally, almost casually, it's Olver's, but it took 5 of them in the end to prevent a consolation goal for Saudi Arabia. And some of the satisfaction would slip away if the clean sheet wasn't maintained. Lovely ball by Majid Abdullah to give the chance to Hirefi, and his first touch was a poor one. Crino. Ezzaki just got his head to it, with Ollerenshaw hoping that he wouldn't. Three minutes to go. 3-0 to Australia. Well, you can never really truly equate matches, but remember, if you're not thinking too kindly about Saudi Arabia, they held Argentina to a 2-2 draw. Which puts Australia's performance into some perspective. But taken as a one-off, it's been very pleasing indeed. Abdullah. Here's Savor. Crino. Crino again. Good first touch by Slater, but he was pressed all the time from the back, but he wasn't going to give it away. Abdullah. It was the sort of ball that Majid Abdullah would have liked to have received a bit more often. Slater wrestled to the ground by Mutlaq. Well, he spilt blood in the cause, but it's a losing cause for Saudi Arabia. Yankos finding Slater. Ollerenshaw going in. He started it all off and very nearly gave us the final flourish. Good early ball in from Slater too. Crino. Ollerenshaw is down injured in an offside position, though hardly interfering with play. John, I felt you suffering on Thursday night in that gallant effort against Brazil, but you've had a smile on your face for most of this afternoon.
Well, mainly because a lot of people have been saying for a long time, this is a team that Australians should be proud of, forgetting soccer fans. They can play, they're a proud group, they're young Australian boys who really we should be proud of, not the discrimination that goes on in the game against soccer in this country, but they're a team that we can be proud of. They've proved it that every time they get a good result, they're knocked about it. The other team's not trying or whatever else. Always a reason. I think they've only lost 4 times in the last 3 years.
Well, they haven't lost today. They've won substantially. The Socceroos collect their first 2 points in the Bicentennial Gold Cup. They rekindle their chances of reaching the final. Scott Ollerenshaw's goal after 6 minutes set the style, and then 2 from Farina, emphasising Australia's superiority. It is a win which reflects great credit on the spirit of the team, the skill of the team, and also their stamina, bearing in mind it's their second match within 48 hours. Saudi Arabia gave an honest display themselves. Well, Frank Arok had to make a decision to pick Ollerenshaw when Cosmina was ruled out. And the coach is very pleased. It's a scoreline that always looks so good when you read about it in the newspapers. A 3-goal margin. Australia 3, Saudi Arabia 0.